Ask a machine a question and you get an answer back. And that has been true for close to 30 years now, since roughly the moment a search box became the front door to everything. Here is that same question going to two different machines at the same moment, and one of them comes back to you instantly. The other one thinks about it and then writes you a sentence, one word at a time, while you sit there reading along with it. Both of those answered your question, only one of them cost real money to produce, and the gap between what those two answers cost is not a small one. It is also not because one machine is new or clever or bigger than the other, it is because they did completely different work. I'll give you the answer now in one sentence and then spend the rest of this video showing you why it is true. A search looks something up and AI makes something. Looking things up is cheap because the expensive part already happened once years ago, and every person on earth who searches is sharing the results of it. Making things is expensive because it happens again from nothing for every single word, and nobody else on earth shares any part of it with you. That is the whole answer. Everything from here is why. Start with the cheap one because most people have never been told what it does. At some point, a machine went and fetched the web, and not your corner of it either, but the whole thing. Hundreds of billions of separate pages. And as it fetched, it wrote something down so that for every single word it ever saw anywhere, it kept a list of which pages contain that word. That is called an index. It is the same idea as the index in the back of a textbook, and it is worth sitting with for a second because it is doing all the work here. The book itself is long, the index at the back is short, and it means you never have to open the book at page 1 and start reading to find the word you want. Each of those rows has a name. It is called a posting list, and that is all it is. A single word plus every place in the world the word turns up. So now you type a question, three or four words. The machine does not go and look at the web. The web is not involved. It picks out the rows for your handful of words, find that pages that show up in all of them, and hands those back. Three rows out of every word in every language it has ever seen, and it does not even read all of those. The lists are built with shortcuts in them, so the machine can jump forward over big stretches it knows it does not need. Here is the part that actually makes it cheap. Google says it handles more than 5 trillion searches a year. That is around 14 billion a day. And every single one of them is reading the same index that was built once. The expensive thing already happened once, and everybody alive is splitting the bill on it forever. Now, the other machine, an AI model is a file. That is genuinely all it is. A file sitting on a disk somewhere, and inside that file, one very long list of plain ordinary numbers. Those numbers have a name. They are called weights, and there are billion of them. Each one is a setting that got nudged into place while the model was being built, and that process is called training. There is no text in that file, no sentences, no pages, no facts you could go and look up. Nothing in there is an answer to anything. It is numbers. So, how do you get a sentence out of a pile of numbers? You take everything written so far and you multiply it through those numbers, all the way through every one of them, from the front of that file to the back of it. And what falls out of the other end is one word, the next word. Not the answer, one word of it. Then it does the whole thing again for the word after that, and again, once per word, all the way to the end of the answer. Each of those words has a name too. They are called tokens, which is the unit these systems actually count in, and a token is roughly a word or a piece of one. When you hear that something costs a million tokens, that is what is being counted, and none of that is shared with anyone. The search index gets built once and then reused 14 million times a day, while your answer is assembled for you alone and then it is thrown away. Now put the two things next to each other and it goes strange because Google says its own index is well over 100 million gigabytes. A big AI model is a few hundred gigabytes. So the index is more than 100,000 times bigger than the model. Not bigger, 100,000 times bigger. And the small one is the expensive one. The big object gets read a tiny fraction at a time once. The small object gets read completely, and then it gets read completely again and again. once for every single word coming out of it. Size was never what mattered. What mattered is how much of the thing you have to go through and how many separate times you are forced to go through it. Let us do a real answer. Say 300 words, which is a decent reply to a decent question. 300 words means going through the model 300 times. If that model is a few hundred gigabytes, you have somewhere around 100 terabytes of numbers to produce one reply. That is for a straightforward model. There is a way to feel 100 terabytes. The whole search index is 100 million gigabytes. 100 terabytes is 100,000 gigabytes, which means one AI answer for one person pushes about 1,000 of Google's entire index through a chip. A search reads three rows and skips most of them. Now, the other direction, because this is the part people get wrong in the loud direction, that is not a scary amount of electricity. Google measured its own median text prompt at 0.24 watt hours, and the comparison for it is watching television for under 9 seconds. One question is nothing. It has never been about one question. One pass for your question, one pass for every word of the answer. That split is sitting in plain sight on every AI pricing page. Once you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. Reading your question is one pass through the model, no matter how long the question is. A short question, a long one, a whole document, one pass. Writing the answer is one pass per word. So the two halves get built at different rates and they are not close. One model on one day on a public price list, 25 cents per million tokens going in, 95 cents per million coming out. You're not really paying for your question, you're paying for the answer, which is why the thinking model cost what they cost. When a model works through a problem before answering, those working out steps are words too. It writes them one at a time, one pass each, and most of them are never shown to you. OpenAI's own documentation says it plainly. Those hidden reasoning words are built as output. You pay for words you never read. That whole picture, the model being read from front to back once for every single word, I have been describing as though you were the only person asking. That is where I owe you a correction. Two of them. The first one is batching. A server is not answering you alone, it is answering hundreds of people in the same moment. And it pulls the model through once for all of them together. The cost of that read gets split across everybody in the batch. So the real per person number is far below the naive one. The second one is bigger. I told you it reads the whole model for every word. And for a straightforward model, that is exactly what happens. But the big ones now split themselves up into specialists and only wake a few of those specialists for any given word. One published model has 671 billion numbers in it and uses about 37 billion of them for any given word. 8 specialists out of 256, which sounds like it demolishes everything I just said, and it does not for two reasons. 37 billion numbers per word is still 37 billion numbers per word, and all 671 billion of them have to be sitting in memory ready because the machine does not know which specialist the next word need until it gets there. And here is the thing worth noticing, both of those tricks exist for one reason, which is to attack the cost of pulling a whole model through a chip for every word it writes. Nobody redesigns the whole machine to dodge a problem that is not real. It works too because Google says the energy behind one of its own prompts fell 33 times in a single year. So the whole thing in three sentences, and index is built once and read a fraction at a time by everybody forever. A model is read again for every word it writes for one person, and then that work is thrown away. So the build tracks how much it says back to you, not how much it knows. And that is why a quarter of a watt hour is worth anybody's attention. 14 billion searches happen every day. Put an AI answer on top of every one of them, which is roughly the direction all of this is going, and a quarter of a watt hour becomes more than 3 million kilowatt hours a day. The number per question is tiny, the number of questions is not. One thing I'm curious about, and it takes no effort to answer, when an AI hands you an answer, do you still go and check it with a search? And that is it. If you like the video, make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.